Hey folks, Mark here. Still on homelessness. We're talking about crime, and I will tell you, or I will repeat, that most of the crime that they do is ripping things off. And that is something that they are serious scavengers. Any opportunity that they get, they will steal. And a lot of times they don't care how much damage they cause getting what they want. Like, if they see what's in a car, break a window, and they're gone. That's theft is the main thing that they support themselves with. Now, you will encounter homeless people who will do robberies. And that one is kind of a weird thing. Yes, you will encounter homeless who are armed and they will pull a knife on you, etc. A lot of times they don't have a gun because, well, they sold it. But they keep knives because they need to defend themselves. And that is something that you will encounter, that they can use a knife to commit a rob. That's one of those things of, in many ways, all the stuff I've talked about the 5 stages and recognizing it, it's still the same thing. So it follows the pattern, even if the complication is they're homeless. So it's not really that different. There is, however, a bizarre thing, and that is what's called aggressive panhandling. Now, here's to understand what this is. It's a form of actual robbery, but because it doesn't have weapons, it's more of a strong arm technique. Cops will often blow it off, and this is one thing that, okay, maybe the cops know what's happening, but the government of the city decides, hey, we're just going to write it off as he's panhandling and he's just being a little too aggressive. Okay? The problem with this is you understand that there's multi layers of robbery. And there's like armed robbery where somebody will come in and use a weapon. And I'm talking right now of the guy will shoot you and then, they come in using extreme violence and then they go through your stuff as you're laying on the ground. That is attempted murder, and it is the highest level of robbery, and they will be prosecuted. The criminals know this. Then comes what we think of as armed robbery. That's where a weapon is used, where the guy walks up and says, give me your money, da 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 da. Now, if people are doing armed robbery, the cops are going to have way more attention because, again, remembering, theft is illegal taking of something. Robbery is the illegal taking of something through violence or the threat of violence. Okay? So, again, most time the guy will walk up, pull a weapon, show it to you, and then say, give me your wallet. Okay? That's common. Then you get into what's known as strong arm robbery. Now, strong arm robbery tends to be less enforced. Okay, the cops know it's happening, but it's harder to prove. I mean, the guy has a weapon, it's easy to do it. But what strong arm robbery is somebody uses the threat of physical violence, i.e. punching or like getting in your face, to intimidate you into giving them money. Now, it's harder to prosecute because really there's no hard evidence that it happened. Okay? Unless somebody's got video of it, it's your word against theirs. And so a guy comes in, is taking something and says, fuck off to a store owner. That's a strong arm robbery because, he's kind of threatening the thing. Well, same thing with individuals. The guy comes walking up and says, hey, give me some money. Okay? It's not a request, it's an order. Strong arm robberies are actually way more common with groups than they are individuals. So you'll get a bunch of kids surrounding you right? And they'll be rah, 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 and like, give me, hey man, got any money? Give me the money. Da, da, da. And then they'll scatter or they'll split and they'll spread the money out among themselves. This is harder to prosecute, not only because of that there is no physical violence, just the threat, but it's also, you got 3 kids or 4 kids, as I'm holding my fingers, who are saying, "Oh no, man, we didn't do it. This is our money. How are you going to prove it?" Okay, and it's more of a pain in the ass for the cops. They know it happens, but hey, since nobody got hurt, no weapons were involved. Okay, now this brings us to aggressive panhandling, and this is where instead of "Excuse me, do you have any money?" right? They get more aggressive and they're like, "Hey, give me money, give me $1, give me money." And a lot of times what their tactics are going to be is they'll do shit like they'll sneak up behind you, right? And then go, "Hey, give me some money," right? And they're right, and you flip around and there's a guy right in your face. Aggressive panhandling is frowned on, but it's also kind of blown off by the cops and the courts because they don't want to deal with it, and it's just like too much of a hassle for them to prosecute. So you will get aggressive panhandlers, and these people will come and get in your face about giving them money. Now, you can handle this behavior basically by doing strong boundaries and being well and recognizing that this isn't a panhandle. This is a very subtle form of robbery because they're trying to intimidate you. Now, it doesn't give you permission to pull out your gun and start blazing, right? But you need to convince the panhandler that his strategy isn't working and do it without challenging him, which we'll talk about in the next one, because there is a way you will get more in physical confrontation with the homeless people than anything else, and that's how you address them. We'll talk about that in the next one, but the main thing is, without being an asshole yourself, be very, very clear that no, you're not going to give them money, that hey, stop closing the distance, like, stay back. Now what do you want? All right, sorry, I can't help you, right? This is the stuff. It's like dealing with an obnoxious person and maintaining your boundaries and being willing to use physical force if they do. Now, this is the thing. A strong arm robbery is like obvious that aggressive panhandling, they really don't want to get into a physical altercation with you, because if they do, that's where they'll get arrested, right? And a lot of times that's not what they want. They'll get charged. So be aware of, number one, attack ranges, okay? And if you haven't heard that term before, and I use it all the time, but that is the range that somebody can attack you without taking a step, okay? And a lot of intimidation is done inside attack range, and people can't articulate what happened, okay? They knew they were intimidated, but they don't know why. And often what will happen is, if you step out of attack range, they'll close the distance again, okay? So they get in your face, they come up behind you, right? And then as you try and buy distance, they'll follow you, and they do it when you're scared, okay? And I was talking to somebody this morning about bullies who go looking, and there are certain responses that they know not to mess with, okay? And there's other responses that they're not sure what they are, okay? So they don't know how to handle it. But in the middle, there are responses that bullies know it's safe to bully this person. And this is what it is. Aggressive panhandling is basically a form of bullying to get money, okay? So, when somebody does that, set the boundaries and give them reason not to close the distance. So if the guy comes up and goes, "Hey," and you twist, right, and you are like, "Oh," okay, that tells them that it's safe to continue. On the other hand, if you whip around and you're ready to rock and roll, but you move away so you're out of the attack range or his attack range, okay, that is a better, more effective way. And then you take control of the conversation. Like, I'm walking along and, somebody comes up behind me and says, "Hey," and it's like, I jump away and it's like, "What? What can I do for you?" Now I've taken control of the conversation. Okay? But we're out of attack range, and he knows that closing the distance again is likely to put him in danger. And that is where they decide to go do this stuff to somebody else.